and saw two men standing over a third man who was lying leaning against the wall. One of the bandits leaned over and tried to empty his pockets. He was saying that this old man was clutching his wallet so tightly. The other, with a bottle in his hand, said to just smack him upside the head and that's it. Hanul wants to kill all those bastards. He picked up a rock from the ground and lunged at the men, yelling for them to stop. He was already close to them, preparing to strike, but he tripped and collapsed on the ground in front of them. The bandits looked at him indignantly and asked what kind of strange bastard he was. One of them raised his foot to step on him. Hanul covered his head with his hands to protect himself somehow. He thought about the fact that someone like him couldn't do anything. Then out of nowhere, Haru Lee appeared and kicked the man in the face. The man flew off into the wall. Hanul was shocked. The other man grabbed a bottle in his hand and rushed towards the girl running towards him, while calling her a crazy bitch and asking if she wanted to die. The bottle was already near her head, but she easily pushed it away with one hand and grabbed the man's neck with the other. Looking at him, she did a somersault with him and he fell to the ground, hitting his head. Hanul looked at her admiringly and she walked over to the man sitting against the wall, crouched down next to him and told him that she had told him not to sleep here. She lifted him up, throwing his arm over her neck, and added that how long was he going to make his niece do something like this. Hanul recognized Lihara at this time and thought about how such a girl was able to. He extended his hand towards the departing man and girl, apologizing. But the latter went on to tell his uncle that he was getting heavier and heavier. In that case, he wouldn't be able to keep an eye on him anymore. The boy lowered his hand and thought that of course she didn't care much for someone like him. He stopped, turned around and asked him grudgingly what was he standing for. Wasn't he going to help? Sunset. Lee Haru walks ahead, followed by Hanul dragging her uncle behind her. He was thinking about how he just had tons of questions. But she interrupted his thoughts by asking if he knew how a weak girl like her was able to defeat those men. He was surprised at her question, but she turned to him and said it was all because of him and pointed her finger at him. He blushed and asked what did she mean. He explained that he had no brute physical strength, but while they were distracted by him, she was able to get close to them undetected. Even if her opponent is superior to her physically, if caught off guard, even a weak girl like her can come out victorious. There are 3 extremely vulnerable spots, but it's quite difficult to take advantage of this as they can be easily defended. The eyes, groin, and jaw. The jaw, although it seems solid, its structure is quite wobbly and can be easily dislodged. In addition, there are a large number of nerves running through it. If you properly hit an opponent who has no time to defend himself, you can knock him out with a single blow. When the latter saw what became of the former, he panicked, and with all his might he threw himself at her with a bottle in his hand, so she just used his own strength against him. When he got close to her, she just pushed him lightly in the direction she wanted him to go. This way, she was able to use a technique that she would never be able to do in a normal situation. The guy, mouth open, listened to her and didn't understand how, and she continued that if he was wondering how she accomplished it, she had a teacher who helped her learn it all. Hanul asked who that was. Laying the man down on the couch, Haru crossed her arms over her chest and said that here he was, her uncle, and also her teacher. Hanul said that couldn't be it. The girl lowered her gaze sadly and said that right now their hall was in trouble and would be closed soon. But that wasn't the most important thing. For some reason, he had lost all desire to teach anyone. Hanul knelt down in front of the man lying on the couch and bowed his head to the floor. The girl was taken aback and asked what was he doing. The boy asked loudly and clearly to take him on as an apprentice. He wants to become stronger, but no one is willing to accept him. He wants to destroy them, but a coward like him can't do anything. Please. But the man only opened the swarms and continued to hug his bottle. Silence fell in the room. The guy was thinking about the fact that, as expected, someone like him. But then the man abruptly sat down on the couch, then stood up, looked at the guy and said that it looked like the fun days were coming to an end. The guy looked at the man and asked what did that mean, that he was accepted, and started to thank him. Next day, a 2-story building with a mansard on the roof. The walls were cracked and everything looked old. A man sat at a desk, a large window behind him, and Hanul sat in front of him. He was reading what was written on the pieces of paper, and he asked what he had to sign this contract. It said that he must follow all his commands no matter what. The fee would be 2, whatever he called it. In addition, if he would be given using the knowledge gained from him, he must give him a share of all the money thus gained at the rate of 8 to 2. What does that mean? The man sipped from his bottle and said that of course 8 was himself. Then he looked at the surprised boy and asked, What, he didn't want to? Then he can just get out of here. The guy looked at the contract and thought, he's not going to fight for money anyway, so there's no point in dropping everything because of that clause. All he needs to do is get stronger. He picked up a pen and said, okay, he just has to sign. He left his signature and handed the man a piece of paper. The man smiled, snatched the sheet, pulled out his phone and asked someone if he had heard everything. He'd found him a guy he could use as much as he wanted. Hanel sensed that something had gone wrong. The guy thought that meant the techniques he would be able to learn were. On the wall of the room was a large poster that said self-defense for women. Hanel asked the man that the person the man was talking about. Was that him about him? He pointed his finger at himself, but the man told him to take off his glasses. The guy did as he was told and asked why. The man coughed and said, "You can't be a man with glasses," and coughed again. The guy put his glasses back on and asked what the man said. The man said that he would come soon, then he would know everything. Hanel asked who was coming. The man asked if the guy had heard about the greatest mixed martial arts tournament. The man who came up with that will be here soon. Here he is. The door opened and a man walked into the room asking the guy, "So is that him?" Hanel turned to him, surprised, and asked him what he was. Tall skyscraper. An elderly man standing at the panoramic window looking out at the daytime city. It was the chairman of the Cheongsong Corporation, Gang Du Cheol. He asked what Gang Qian was doing now. The black-suited aide standing behind him replied that after the tournament was officially announced, he stopped picking fights at school. He believes that his tournament idea has been effective. The elderly man asked why he thought that rascal Gang Lian was always looking for strong opponents. The man in the back was silent for a moment, then began that if he let him speak his mind, he believes the young master is trying to find his place among the elite by using his talent in fighting. Besides, the president's divorce. But the chairman raised his hand, urging the man to shut up. The man said he was sorry and lowered his head. The chairman said that he too thought that after his son's divorce, his grandson was trying to forget everything. He then asked the secretary if he had found anyone who could be his opponent. Lately, he's always looking for someone to fight with because he couldn't find anyone, right? The man replied that someone had already signed the contract himself, and the chairman asked who was it. "Get up now," came a shout in the old building. Hanel was lying on the floor and didn't move. A tall guy with gray hair relaxed his tie and resented him. Had he really passed out after one blow? What would he be ordered to do with him? Uncle Haru replied that he could consider it a kind of familiarity. He wasn't the one who knocked him out, though. The gray-haired man didn't understand, and the man continued that he didn't know why, but it looked like this guy hadn't eaten or slept for the past few days. He didn't knock him out, he just fell asleep. With his skills, he'd never beat him, so he could take it easy. The guy got indignant and asked if the man knew how many gangs he had wiped out across the country, and the man calmly replied that he would soon realize what he meant. When did he fall asleep? What's that sound? It felt like that sound made him feel fullness in his stomach. The guy opened his eyes and saw a picture of him eating quickly and greedily in front of him. Hanel asked, "That was the sound of what he eats." He got up and assumed a sitting position. He asked, "Since when did he eat this? Did he single-handedly eat all of this?" He looked around and saw boxes of food next to him. He was sitting on a stake, still in the same room, but then he noticed a guy with gray hair in front of him. He asked him if he was awake. Does he even know how tedious it is to feed a sleeping person? Hanel asked him if he was feeding him. Then he realized that he wasn't wearing his glasses, and he added that he couldn't see anything without them. But who was he? But then he fearfully moved away from him and told him to stand. Why would he drink?